Set in the Joseon era, the country is hit by a great plague that makes the people suffer. Dark clouds cover the sun, causing a severe drought. This disaster exacerbates the tension between the people and the royal family, who are slowly losing their power. Choi Hyun-seon, the head of the ceremonial bureau, performs a ritual at a shrine to pray for peace in the country. The next day, Hyun-seon is summoned by Queen Shim, where she is told that the queen had just dreamed of a black vermilion bird entering her stomach, which was interpreted as a sign of pregnancy. However, the physician states that she is not pregnant, creating a tense atmosphere. Outside the palace, the servants began to discuss the strangeness that despite the rituals performed every morning, the queen had not yet conceived. Hae-ran, a servant and young shaman, felt that something was strange. When she felt the strangeness, the atmosphere suddenly became dark and heavy rain fell. The Queen Mother summoned King Seon-jo and Queen Shim, expressing her frustration that the queen had not yet become pregnant after 5 years of marriage. She ordered that they be watched while they were sleeping together on the day of Moses. She also intended to see them in person with the doctor she would bring. King Seon-jo strongly refused and accused his mother of only caring about her own power. After the departure of the queen and king, the furious Queen Dowager orders Eunuch Park to summon Hong-joo, the black magic shaman who brought disaster 5 years ago. Although forbidden, the Queen Dowager trusts her again in order to obtain offspring for the kingdom. Hong-joo agrees if she will help the kingdom to obtain offspring quickly. Meanwhile, Queen Shim is trying on clothes for the next banquet, while worrying about the meaning of her dream. Suddenly, it is heard that someone from the Shaman Bureau has come and wants to visit. Hong-joo and her followers enter to greet her, saying that they were ordered by the Queen Mother to speak in private. When the Queen's servants came out, Hong-joo told his followers to take off the clothes Queen Shim was wearing. The Queen rebelled because she felt they were being rude to her. Hong-joo assured that this was an order from the Queen Mother. Hong-joo approached by attaching her spell. Then his followers whipped the Queen. Queen Shim groans in pain. Hong-joo, who has found the answer to her spell, tells her followers to stop. It turns out that Queen Shim is declared sterile, making the Queen Mother confused and worried because there is no successor to the kingdom. Hong-joo offers a solution so that the king can still have children.
모든 것은 데뷔마마의 선택이십니다. 세자를 만드는 것이 중요하네.
Meanwhile, Hyun-seon, who is against Hong-joo's arrival, warns the Queen Dowager, but is rejected and thrown out of the palace.
공주의 관계에 현혹돼서는 안 되옵니다.
다시는 궁 근처에 얼씬도 하지 마시오.
Then Hong-joo devises a plan, with Hae-ran as the key. Hae-ran is trapped and forced to sleep with the king in order to produce offspring. At first she refuses, but Hae-ran reluctantly agrees because they threaten the safety of her mother and younger brother.
용안을 똑바로 보아서는 안 된다.
교접을 시작하시옵소서.
After a night with the king, Hae-ran is declared pregnant. Queen Shim orders Hae-ran to be guarded, but there is actually a hidden intention to sacrifice her. Hong-joo begins a ritual using Hae-ran's belongings to transfer the fetus in her womb into Queen Shim's body. Meanwhile, Hyun-seon tries to stop the ritual with all her might, but all her efforts are in vain. The black shadow from the ritual attacks and takes the fetus from Hae-ran, then enters Queen Shim's body. Finally, Queen Shim is declared pregnant, making the Queen Dowager and the palace rejoice, while Hae-ran experiences physical and mental suffering because her body is affected by black magic. Hae-ran tries to escape, but is chased by Hong-joo's followers. In her escape, she begs Queen Shim for help, but instead sees her mother and sister killed before her eyes by Hong-joo's orders. In her rage, Hae-ran attacks Hong-joo and nearly finishes her off, but is stabbed in the back by Queen Shim. In her final moments, Hae-ran reveals that the children Queen Shim is carrying are twins and are cursed, that at the age of 17, they or the person who loves them will die. She then takes her last breath in a very tragic state. Long story short, Queen Shim finally gave birth, and sure enough, the baby was a boy and a girl. Because of the curse, Hong-joo suggested to kill the girl so that bad luck would not befall the kingdom, because she felt that the baby was a curse. But the queen was unable to do so. Hong-joo tries to find another way. She asks Hae In-seon to help her and tries to convince the man to help her for the safety of the kingdom. Although reluctant, the next day Hae In-seon finally takes the baby to the forest and burns it, with tears accompanying her actions. Hong-joo seems calm, but Hae In-seon is filled with guilt. After many years, unexpectedly, the girl still lives and grows into a beautiful girl named Yeon-hee, indicating that fate still holds a mystery that has not been fully revealed. In a village, a horse race was held between two sons of the governor of Yong-seon, named Heo-jun and Heo-ok. The villagers were enthusiastic about watching it, and even made bets. Most of them supported Heo-jun because he was considered more skilled, except for a young man who supported Heo-ok. The race was fierce. Heo-jun managed to overtake Heo-ok, but it turned out that Heo-ok had prepared a cheating plan. He signaled his partner, who then sprinkled sand to obstruct Heo-jun's view. As a result, Heo-jun fell, and Heo-ok reached the finish line first. The villagers were shocked to see the result, but the young man who won the bet cheered happily. Heo-ok pretended to be worried, but actually wanted to brag. Heo-jun responds calmly, saying that he lost because Heo-ok was superior. Dong-rae approaches Heo-jun while showing off his betting money, hoping they can gamble again. Heo-jun refuses, but realizes Dong-rae has hidden some of the money under his vest. Heo-jun cleverly catches him and takes the money back. Meanwhile, Heo-ok celebrates his victory at a restaurant with his friends, but is upset because they all bet on Heo-jun. When he finds out that Dong-rae won the bet, he remembers Heo-chun's words, "I have to lose this time." On the other hand, Heo-jun and Dong-rae disguise themselves as fertility drug sellers and try to trick the female shaman.
내가 정말 자존심 상해가지고.
그냥 드리는 거예요, 그냥.
They manage to influence most of them, until a shaman realizes that they are imposters. They are chased and separated. Heo-jun enters Hong-joo's territory, but manages to escape. Hong-joo, who sees him, feels that there is something strange about the young man. At the palace, the Queen Dowager, Queen Shim, and Crown Prince Soonhwae discuss the Crown Prince's birthday. When the gifts and matchmaking are discussed, the Crown Prince seems uncomfortable. He also tells of a strange dream about a woman who looks like him and is crying. Queen Shim seems worried but tries to reassure her son not to worry. Queen Shim confides in Hong-joo about her anxiety and the Crown Prince's dream, but Hong-joo calms her down and says it was all just a dream. When she returns to her room, Hong-joo begins to think about the woman in the dream. In the market, a stretcher appears causing chaos. Heo-ok sees the incident and becomes suspicious. He then makes a challenge to Heo-jun. If he can retrieve the kite that is stuck in the forest, he will be rewarded with 500 naeang. Although it is dangerous, Heo-jun accepts it, making the villagers anxious. Heo-jun and Dong-rae enter the Black Forest, which is full of traps and scary myths.
야, 준아, 근데 너
청 어여쁜 얼굴을 하고 나타나서
Inside, they met a large tiger. Heo-jun tells Dong-rae to run away while he faces danger. When he was about to be attacked, The glass fragments reflecting light made the tiger quiet and run away. Heo-jun was saved and continued his journey. He arrived at a mysterious house in the middle of the forest. While trying to retrieve the kite, he is hit from behind and passes out. When he wakes up, he sees a woman covered with a frying pan who turns out to be Yeon-hee. At first suspicious, Yeon-hee eventually lets Heo-jun go after seeing his kindness. Yeon-hee asks Heo-jun to pick some fruit from the tree because she is not allowed to go outside the fence. Heo-jun complies and manages to make Yeon-hee smile because of his behavior. Heo-jun watches Yeon-hee eat fruit with gusto. When Yeon-hee offers him some fruit, he refuses and asks if Yeon-hee really lives in that house. Yeon-hee nods. Yeon-hee asks why Heo-jun came, who then panics looking for his kite. Yeon-hee realizes it is hers and accuses Heo-jun of being a thief. They argue until Heo-jun accidentally hugs her, which makes Yeon-hee hear his heartbeat. During the awkward atmosphere, Hae In-seon's voice is heard. Yeon-hee panics, telling Heo-jun to run away. Hae In-seon gets angry and warns Yeon-hee not to leave the house. Secretly, Heo-jun overhears a conversation between Yeon-hee and her father, Hae In-seon, who was ordered by King Sung-jae to protect Yeon-hee because she is the key to breaking the chain of royal curses.
이 아이의 저주를 풀어 이 나라를 구해주게. 반드시 그 무녀를 막아야 하네.
Yeon-hee's stepbrother, Pung-yeon, comes secretly and gives her a lantern as a birthday present. Yeon-hee feels happy because someone remembers her birthday.
역시 오라버니밖에 없습니다.
그렇지. 부정을 타면 안 되지.
On his way home, Heo-jun sees a kite stuck on a rock. He tries to pick it up, but slips and falls. Hoo-jung finds out that the cursed baby girl is still alive. He sends black magic to destroy her, especially after suspecting that the crown prince's dream showed her as his cursed twin sister. On the other hand, Yeon-hee closes all the doors of her house because she hears a strange sound. She is scared, but tries to restrain herself from being tempted to open the door. Poon-jeon returns home, and his father meets him right away. They talk about Yeon-hee and warn him not to visit his house. And his father refuses to explain why Yeon-hee has to live in the middle of the forest.
연희는 왜 그곳에 있어야만 하는 건지.
Disappointed, Poon-yeon leaves in anger, followed by his worried mother. Heo-jun is the child of a secret relationship between a nobleman and a slave, which is hated by the noble family. The nobleman's legal wife warns her to control her son. Heo-chen's worried mother, outside, simultaneously meets Heo-chek in a drunken state and tells her that Heo-chen will be back soon. On the other hand, Yoon-ai, who felt the strange sounds had disappeared, dared to open the door. She found Heo-jun lying in pain. Yoon-hai helped and treated his wounds. Heo-jun was stunned by her beauty. When asked, Heo-jun admitted that the wound was obtained when he tried to take his kite. After finishing, Heo-jun told him to spend the night. Heo-jun refused, but finally accepted because the atmosphere outside was scary.
당연히 난 방에서 자고, 넌 마루에서 자야지.
어찌 너희 아버지께서는
세상에 태어나지 말아야 할 사람은 없고 그것을 참는 것이 인생이라고.
They talk about each other's origins, and before they know it, they fall asleep. Hong-joo's dark spirit continues to try to enter Yoon-hae's house, but is blocked by two guardian wolves. The next day, Heo-jun successfully brings the kite to Heo-ok and collects on the man's promise.
야.
However, when he returned, he had a fight with Heo-ok, who humiliated him because of his mother's status. With a sense of direction, Heo-jun hit her until she fell into the pool. When he arrived home, his mother was worried to see his condition. Not long after, Heo-ok came with a wounded face, followed by his mother who demanded Heo-jun apologize. He refused, and then left.
저를 빌 것도 없습니다.
들어가는 문이 있을 것이다.
Hae In-seon manages to enter the Chongbin temple and finds the Book of Demon Extermination. The book explains that to break the curse, 108 candles must be lit before the North Star disappears. However, she finds that the candles are not easy to light because they require a true soul.
초를 모두 피워 저주를 풀어야 한다.
빨리 이곳으로 연희를 데리고 와야 해.
Meanwhile, Pung-jeon tries to read Eun-hee's hope in the lantern she made. Where the hope is, Eun-hee wants to see the outside environment. Then he takes the initiative to invite Eun-hee to the festival and get out of her house. Although hesitant, Eun-hee finally agrees and feels happy to see the outside world, where the situation is very crowded and exciting because of the many performances that can entertain. At night, the lantern show has begun. They light the lanterns with a happy feeling. Because he is too focused, Pong-yeon does not realize that Yoon-hee is no longer beside him. Yoon-hee goes to the palace area without realizing it. At the palace, the Crown Prince's birthday celebration takes place, with a dance performed by Hong-joo and other shamans. Suddenly, the atmosphere became tense because Hong-joo fell and had a red stain. He suspected this was because of the presence of the Crown Prince's twin, and tried to make sure to look for his whereabouts around the palace. However, he did not find him. Yeo Hoe-hyun finds Yeon-hee passed out and hides her. Pung-yeon sees it coming and takes Yeon-hee home. At home, the demon spirit manages to enter Yoon-hee's house, burns the barrier, and possesses her, making her body uncontrollable. This also happens to the Crown Prince, causing everyone to panic. Hong-joo realizes that something big is happening.
어서 의원한테 한번 가봐야.
그만 갈 길 가십시오.
Hee-jin went home feeling upset because he didn't expect Yoon-hee, the sweet girl, to have a cold brother like Pung-yeon. On the way, he saw his mother surrounded by young men, then covered with cloth and taken away. He tried to chase after her, but was beaten unconscious and taken away. Meanwhile, Hae-ran returns to Yoon-hee's house and finds her daughter unconscious. After regaining consciousness, Yoon-hee expresses her fear and asks Hae-ran for help. She tries to comfort her with a hug. At the palace, the Crown Prince is unconscious, causing Queen Shim to panic and demand Hong-joo promise that everything will be okay. Queen Shim tries to wake the Crown Prince, but he is unresponsive until Queen Shim falls unconscious. Hong-joo begins to suspect Hae-ran as the cause. Yeo Hoe-hyun was taken to the forest and saw that his mother was about to be tortured by Mrs. Hyeok's men. He cried for forgiveness, and Mother Hyeok warned that going against fate would only bring misfortune. He tried to obey reluctantly. However, when he opened the white cloth, it turned out that his mother was not inside. He went home in a hurry, found his mother hanging out clothes to dry, and persuaded her to run away from this house. On the other hand, Pung-yeon is also critical. When he wakes up, he sees a scary figure behind his mother. Yoon-hee, who begins to be possessed by an evil spirit, becomes uncontrollable. Yeogwon tries to calm her down and persuades her to prepare to go to Chongbin Temple to start a new life, and tries to calm her down by saying that all of this will have a solution. Because of course, Hae-ran will save herself and Peng-yeon. Yoon-hee is curious about what her sister experienced. Yeogwon, who feels that she has slipped up, is confused about what to explain. Yong-hee asks to meet her sister. Yeogwon, who feels hesitant, finally complies with the request. But when they arrive at Pung-yeon's house, everyone is scared to see Yoon-hee's face, including the dancer who is performing the ritual. When Yoon-hee meets her brother, Pung-yeon rejects her because he is afraid of seeing her like a ghost. Her mother comes in and is shocked to see them. She calls Yoon-hee a curse. Yoon-hee is devastated. Hae-ran comes and asks Yeogwon to take Yoon-hee away. On the way, Yoon-hee finally decides to go to the temple, following all the rules so as not to harm others. Hong-joo meets Hae-ran, who begins to suspect her of hiding a secret about the Crown Princess.
공주를 어디에 숨겨놓았습니까? 대감은 공주를 죽이지 않았습니다.
Hae-ran's wife has revealed their hideout. Hong-joo storms the place and a battle ensues. Hae-ran's followers are killed, Yeogwang is badly injured, and Yoon-hee witnesses it all. Hong-joo says that all of this is because of Yoon-hee's curse.
이 아이를 데려가서는 안 된다.
대감,
Hae-ran escapes with Yoon-hee, but eventually decides to distract the enemy, telling Yoon-hee to continue walking to the temple. Hae-ran is eventually caught and stabbed by Hong-joo.
공주는 어디에 있습니까?
나와 함께 죄값을 치르지.
Elsewhere, Yoon-hee is chased and almost shot. Heo Jun appears and protects her, but the arrow still hits Yoon-hee.
괴로우냐?
She falls into the sea and the water instantly freezes. Yoon-hee tries to break the ice, but fails and loses consciousness.
제가 죽겠습니다.
Hong-joo gets news that her followers failed to find Yoon-hee when she fell. She then performs the ritual, but feels strange in her body, seeing veins popping on her hands. She remembers Hae-ran's warning that black magic will harm her. At the palace, Crown Prince Soonhwae wakes up, and his hair is back to black. Queen Shim is relieved, as is Pyongyang, who is cured of the curse on his neck. Meanwhile, Yeogwang is saved by a mysterious man who gives him a spell. Dong-rae is tortured by Heo-ok's men demanding information about Heo-jun. Heo-jun himself wakes up from his faint and is surprised when his wounds miraculously heal. He immediately remembers his mother, who is about to leave for Ming. Heo-chan's mother, who was waiting at the harbor, was attacked by Heo-ok because she tried to escape. As the torch burns down the house, Heo-ok panics and uses Heo-chan's mother as a foothold to escape. Heo-chan arrives and manages to save his mother, but she dies in his arms. Heo-ok comes home scared. Pyongyang calms him down, blaming the disaster on a slave's fate. At the palace, the crown prince eats heartily, making the queen dowager happy. However, Queen Shim suspects something is wrong and challenges Hong-joo. When Hong-joo disappears, the crown prince suddenly turns pale and eventually dies. Queen Shim and the queen dowager are devastated. Hong-joo, from a distance, reminisces about the night she pulled the black spirit from the crown prince's body because she was angry at Queen Shim.
다시 뵐 때까지 강령하시길.
Meanwhile, Heo-jun mourns at his mother's grave and begins to suspect Heo-ok after finding his mother's ring on him. 5 years have passed. Rumors about the mysterious girl in the forest and the man in the red robe continue to spread. Heo-jun pretends to gamble with some men to catch a fugitive conman to help Heo-ok, who works for the police. The two young men who are the targets are upset because they fell into Heo-jun's trap. Heo-ok is proud of her boss's praise and is determined to get the promotion that is coming soon. Heo-ok visits Heo-chan's residence to give him a reward for helping her. Heo-chan's life changed 5 years ago. He started hanging out with women and enjoying life. Yoon-hee, now named Seor, lives in Chongbin Temple, trying to light 108 candles to remove her curse. She only needs to light 8 more candles, but has not been able to light even one for 6 months. In the village, a man's body was found hanging with severe injuries. The villagers were terrified, thinking the perpetrator was wearing a red robe. Yeogwang is taking the hope label, as per Yoon-hee's order. He doesn't know if he is followed by someone in a red robe, but in the middle of the journey, he feels like he is being followed. He tries to trick him. At the same time, an arrow is aimed at the person in the red robe, but he manages to avoid it. It turns out that it was Pyongyang's doing. They fight, but fail to catch him because he has been surrounded by sand, making him lose his sight. At the palace, the king is furious and orders a massive search for the red-robed assassin. The king himself is suffering from a mysterious illness, blood and pus coming out of his body. He refuses the help of Queen Shim, who is worried. The queen suspects the illness is a curse and orders a massive search for Hong-joo. On the other hand, Hae-ran is still alive, but unconscious and under Hong-joo's supervision. Seore is tidying up her medicine-making place. She feels something is missing, and sure enough, the bell Pung-yeon gave her falls to the ground. When she picks it up, the memory of her brother's promise comes back to her mind. The promise that Pung-yeon will come if the bell is rung. Her daydream was broken by Yeogwang's arrival. She immediately diverted her attention, asking Yeogwang to find medicinal plants to make a magic potion. Yeogwang agreed, but his heart remembered Hae-ran's message. The curse must be lifted before the North Star disappears, or the lives of those who intend to risk it. He was determined to help Seore complete their plan. At night, Jisung Manwol pours out her heart to her friend about her unrequited love. Her friend tries to give her advice, but Manwol is deemed to be a complete lack of flirting talent. Things escalate when another Gisong steps in and asks Manwol to continue her work. To lighten the mood, Manwol takes her friend out. Hyo-jun watches Hyo-ok go to the Jisung area, greeted by enthusiastic merchants selling their goods. Manwol's friend intends to leave the area, but accidentally overhears a conversation between a merchant who offers his goods to Hyo-ok and uses a business agreement as proof. Although hesitant at first, Hyo-ok accepts it because of the gift of a gemstone ring. The merchant secretly meets someone and gives a secret document. He is Hyo-chan's agent, who intends to bring down Hyo-ok. However, the plan is secretly witnessed by Manwol's friend, who then follows the merchant. He continues to follow him and manages to find the document storage, but is caught by Hyo-ok, who was suspicious, sent Battersea to find the merchant. They caught him, but the merchant claimed that he no longer had any documents and only worked for a scholar. When Hyo-ok started to get confused, someone appeared who claimed to know who the scholar was. Hyo-jun remembers Yeon-hee when he sees the fruit she ate before. Manwol, who plays the harp, offers a drink, but Hyo-jun refuses because he feels Manwol has changed. He claims he wants to be beautiful and go to the 100-year tree. His hope is read by Seore, who then concocts a potion. After drinking it, Manwol becomes beautiful. Feeling happy, he sends a letter to Hyo-jin, but Daebok entrusts the letter to Hyo-jin, and she opens it. Pung-yeon meets Hong-joo, who asks him to cooperate so she can meet the king, but he refuses. Hyo-ok is arrested for bribery. Manwol goes to the meeting place, but is killed by Red Robe. Yeogwang finds her body and fails to catch the perpetrator. Seore from the temple realizes something is wrong when the wishing candle goes out. The magic potion she made for Manwol was unable to save the girl, who was killed by the red cloak on her way to meet Hyo. Yeogwang chases the killer, but fails. He takes the candle back to the temple, and Seore cries in disappointment as her wish fails again. They only have 49 days left. Hyo-ok traps Hyo-jun with Manwol's letter, accusing him of being a red robe. Hyo-jun tries to escape, chased by officers, until he finally falls off a cliff. But before he hits the ground, his body is suspended in the air because Hyo-ah, aka Yoo-hae, comes to save him using her spiritual powers. Hong-joo manages to put Manwol's heart into the spirit jar, bringing back her powers. She looks at the still unconscious Hae-ran and smiles triumphantly. One step closer to breaking the curse she has been guarding. Yeogwang panics when he sees the talismanic shield burning, looking for Seore, who came out of the temple. Seore finds Hyo-jun, who has passed out. She is relieved that he is still alive. When Hyo-jun regained consciousness for a moment, Seore hurriedly turned her body so that her face could not be seen. Seore then finds a bell that looks like her sister's and rings it, attracting the attention of Hong-joo's followers who are looking for the crown princess. When she was about to take Hyo-jun away, Seore had difficulty, but Yeogwang came to help. Hong-joo is furious at losing track of Seore. She orders the area to be heavily guarded and the crown princess brought back alive. Yeogwang asks Seore about Hyo-jun, and Seore claims she just wanted to ask him something and tells him to leave. Yeogwang agrees, but stresses the importance of Seo staying at the temple. He is also surprised when the talismanic shield is intact again. He awoke and the officers fail to find Hyo-jun. Pung-yeon, who claims to be the royal guard, orders them to comb the river. Pung-yeon finds the black bag, but loses the golden bell. Hyo-jun wakes up in the cave and walks around looking at the sides and things there. He goes to the medicine shop and finds a memory potion, then sees the book of demon extermination. He laughs at it, thinking it's a marketing trick, just like he did selling herbal drinks. Because he was curious, he drank the potion until it was finished and read the book in detail. Accidentally, his clothes were exposed to fire from the candle and caused the book to burn. Hyo-jun panicked. Yeogwang came to help put out the fire. Hyo-jun threw the book into the river. Yeogwang, who saw it, was annoyed and intended to stab him with a sword, but before he could do anything further, Sae-ron came and found out that the book was damaged. Sae-ron chastises Hyo-jun, but changes her mind when Hyo-jun shows that he has memorized the contents of the scripture. She is given until the next day to prove her ability. At the palace, the king appoints Hyo-ok as captain of the royal guard after claiming to have found the red cloak perpetrator. Even though Pung-yeon has informed him that the body does not match what he knows. Hyo-jun helps Seo make a forgetfulness potion and becomes increasingly suspicious of the woman's identity. Seo makes the potion to give to Hyo-jun when he has successfully completed rewriting the scripture, as per his agreement with Yeogwang. The king suffers from a mysterious illness, and Queen Shim suspects it and sends a maid to find out the truth. Pung-yeon falls into an illusion trap that makes him chase after the fake Yeon-hee, leaving the king behind. The king is kidnapped and meets Hong-joo. Hong-joo is pleased to hear that the king's illness has returned and begins to approach the king under the pretense of wanting to cure him. She uses black magic to remove the king's wounds and ties him up for an undisclosed reward. Pung-yeon, who realizes that the king is missing, tries to look for him and finds him in the forest, but the king lies about his whereabouts. Hyo-jun is confused when Yeogwang comes with meat and new clothes. Yeogwang thinks the book is finished, but Hyo-jun claims he is still writing. Hyo-jun changes his clothes. Yeogwang accidentally sees a mysterious pattern on his chest, feeling familiar. Queen Shim's maid, who was sent to watch the king, was killed by Hong-joo's followers. After putting the forgetfulness potion, Seo accidentally sees Hyo-jun, who seems to be sleeping. She approaches and almost touches his cheek hesitantly. When she is about to thwart her intention, her hand is held. Hyo-jun opens his eyes and calls himself Persimmon, the nickname he uses for Yeon-hee, making Seo surprised. Seo confirms to Hyo-jun that she is not the woman he knows. She is only interested in the Book of Demonic Extermination and refuses Hyo-jun's help. Even though Hyo-jun begs and wants to help, Seo stands her ground. She intends to finish the book immediately and leave. Their conversation is witnessed by Yeogwang. Sae-ron tries to calm herself down, remembering Hong-joo's words that someone will get hurt if they love her. Yeogwang comes, saying that Hyo-jun has finished copying the scripture and intends to give her a forgetfulness potion. Sae-ron hesitates, but eventually gives it to him. In the morning, Hyo-jun approaches Seo, but does not hand over the book directly and chooses to leave after putting it down. He and Yeogwang then leave the temple. After they successfully reach the top, their Yeogwang carries out his action to make Hyo-jun drink a forgetful potion. Hyo-jun realizes that this drink is a forgetful potion and still drinks it sadly, because he feels that Seo wants him to forget her. King Seonjo considers reactivating the Shaman Council at Hong-joo's urging in order to cure her illness. Queen Shim opposes it, fearing the same repercussions as before. However, the king persists and ignores the warnings. That evening, Queen Shim begged the king to cancel his intention.
이곳에서 한 발자국도 움직이지 않을 것이네.
In the king's chamber, Hong-joo then summons the crown prince's spirit and puts it inside the king's body. Queen Shim is very surprised when the king transforms into the crown prince and calls her mother. She feels happy because she can see her son. Hong-joo feels that Queen Shim has entered into her plan. She tries to offer Queen Shim a way to be able to see Crown Prince Soonhwae. After that incident, Queen Shim agrees to reopen the Shaman Council. Hong-joo convinces her that the Crown Prince is still alive in spirit form and needs a body, namely the king's body. She also convinces her that this is the right thing to do because the king's throne actually belongs to Yeo Hoe-hyun, who has become a fugitive, goes undercover and searches for evidence of the truth at Manuel's death scene. He teams up with Manuel's female friend to frame Yeo Hoe-hyun. He manages to warn Yeo Hoe-hyun to stay alive, as he is determined to reveal the identity of Red Robe. Yeo Hoe-hyun investigates the scene of Manuel's death, and sees the previous incident where Manuel was stabbed by Red Robe. Pung-yeon and Sung-jae find out from the Ji-hoons. Mi-hung claims to have seen Manuel drinking the potion at the 100-year tree. Yeo Hoe-hyun disguises himself as a woman to investigate Manuel's room, but is discovered. He runs away, but is eventually caught by Pung-yeon.
난 아니야. 붉은 덕보. 알아. 붉은 덕보 그 새끼 미치도록 잡고 싶어.
Despite not finding any scars or golden bells on him, Pung-yeon still detains him because he suspects he is involved with the Red Robes. Yeo Hoe-hyun is imprisoned in the palace and will be interrogated the next morning. He feels displeased, but helpless. Yeo Gwang panics when the shield talisman starts burning and tries to find out the truth. He finds the answer in the Bible of 5 prayers, where the symbol on Yeo Hoe-hyun's body indicates that he is a human shield. He regrets and is frustrated because he gave the forgetting potion. Yeo Gwang rescues Yeo Hoe-hyun in disguise and sends him to Chongbin Temple. Meanwhile, the protective amulet in the temple catches fire because Hyeoneseo touches the symbol on the hill and makes the temple shake violently. Seor is scared, her body is floating, her hair is changing, and she looks in pain. Yeo Gwang tries to save her, but Yeo Hoe-hyun catches her first. When in Yeo Hoe-hyun's arms, Seor becomes calm and her hair turns black again, making Yeo Hoe-hyun confused about what really happened. Yeo Hoe-hyun places Seor at Seongbin Temple after the curse reappears. Yeo Gwang reveals that Yeo Hoe-hyun's body has a ghost vision pattern that can block the curse, making it a protective talisman for Seor. In the morning, Seor wakes up and is surprised to find that her hair is still black. Meanwhile, Yeo Hoe-hyun and Yeo Gwang clean up the temple after the incident last night. Yeo Gwang tries to make sure the pattern is still on Yeo Hoe-hyun's body, but is caught, making Yeo Hoe-hyun feel ticklish from being touched by another man. Yeo Gwang is curious about Yeo Ho-hyun's past, who turns out to be accused of being the man in the red robe. Yeo Gwang himself is looking for the man because he always kills people who put their wishes on the 100-year tree, and who made Seor fail to light the candle to remove her curse. They agree to keep this a secret from Seor. However, Seor appears and questions Yeo Ho-hyun's presence. Yeo Gwang explains that Yeo Ho-hyun's presence stabilizes the talismanic shield that protects the temple. Seor initially refuses, but Yeo Gwang persuades her to put aside her shame to remove the curse. Pung-yeon, who has just recovered, finds out that Yeo Ho-hyun escaped from prison and starts looking for him. He suspects that Yeo Ho-hyun is still in the village. On the other hand, Seor, who is making a potion to see ghosts, acts coldly towards Yeo Ho-hyun. However, Yeo Ho-hyun drinks the potion to seek information from the spirit of someone he misses. He persuades Seor to accompany him, saying that he is Seor's protector. Yeo Ho-hyun searches for information about Yeo Ho-hyun's whereabouts and tortures Seon-deok, who eventually reveals that Yeo Ho-hyun is on a trip. Meanwhile, Yeo Ho-hyun and Seor walk through the market, but Yeo Ho-hyun panics because he sees a ghost. They go to Kissen's house to look for Manuel's spirit, but what Yeo Ho-hyun finds is a wandering female spirit. He is very scared in this situation.
이래서 단서를 얻겠습니까?
Then they decide to visit the water wheel hut where Manuel died. Yeo Ho-hyun manages to meet Manuel's spirit, who shows a mysterious symbol as a clue. Seo and Yeo Ho-hyun go to the 100-year tree, where Seo is saddened by the label that says Killer Tree. She feels guilty because all of this happened because of her. Yeogwang tries to calm her down, but Seore is still devastated. At the palace, Queen Shim holds a royal council, proposing a ritual for the king's healing and appointing Hae-ran as the head of the Taoist temple. Much to Hong-joo's fury, Queen Shim later learns from Hae-ran that the curse cannot be lifted since it is already bound to Hong-joo, and the only solution is the crown princess. On the other hand, the king is increasingly affected by Hong-joo's slanderous remarks about Queen Shim. Hae-ran is hurt by Hong-joo's black magic, but remains determined to uncover the truth. Sae-ron has a plan to be able to light the candles again. She intends to meet someone who wrote a wish. Namely, want to meet someone you miss, to make sure that person remains safe after their wish comes true. Yeogwang initially refuses, but Hyo-jun convinces and agrees to the plan. They eventually go together to find the person's house. Seore brings a hallucination potion to make the person feel someone he misses. It turns out that there they met Pyeong-yeon and Sung-jae. The person who wrote the wish was Pyeong-yeon. When Seore's face was seen, Pyeong-yeon was shocked and called her Jang Hee. Likewise, Seore did not expect to meet her sister again. Sae-ron is haunted by bad memories of the past, especially her brother's words, when Pyeong-yeon asked her to move away. Frightened, she runs away trying to get away slowly. Hyo-jun, who sees it, tries to chase her and tries to calm her down. They talk. Seore refuses to tell her brother about the curse she suffers from, but Hyo-jun advises her to be honest so as not to cause confusion for her brother. Pyeong-yeon insists on knowing the reason behind Seo's disappearance, despite Yeogwang's warnings against looking for her. When Seore returns, Pyeong-yeon hugs her tightly, relieved to see her safe. Queen Shim arrests Hong-joo's followers and orders Eunuch Park to monitor her movements. On the riverbank, Pyeong-yeon and Seo are talking. Suddenly, a soldier comes and says that Pyeong-yeon was summoned back to the palace by the king's order. There he promises Sae-ron to meet again tomorrow at this place, and threatens Hyo-jun to be interrogated when they meet. Hyo-jun is upset because he feels innocent. Pyeong-yeon receives an order from the king to find the crown princess who is suspected of causing his illness and to behead Queen Shim. Pyeong-yeon obeys, but when the king says that his father has returned and orders him to observe his father because he is suspected of hiding the whereabouts of the crown princess, he is shocked and confused about how to act. Hyo-jun saves Seon-deok from Hyo-ok's torture. He almost kills Hyo-ok out of revenge for his mother's death, but is stopped by Seore and his mother's spirit, who comes to comfort him. Candles at Chongbin Temple are lit as a sign that Hyo-jin has expressed his sorrows and feels at ease meeting his mother's spirit. Hong-joo feels pain and bleeds from her mouth due to Seore's candle burning. Hong-joo continues her evil plan with the king, manipulating Queen Shim with the illusion of the crown prince. Hae-ran is there to reveal the trick and make Queen Shim realize it. However, because of Hong-joo's threat, Queen Shim finally gives in to save the fake crown prince. She will release the shaman who is being held and will not make tight security in front of the shaman council palace. Pyeong-yeon, who intends to give Seore a gift, is accompanied by Sung-jae to the market. He entrusts Sung-jae to choose a suitable gift. They buy a beautiful hanbok and hairpins. Sung-jae took the hanbok at the market. At that time, the seller told her to try it first. At first she refused, but finally she tried it. When trying it, it turned out that Sung-jae's body had the same symbol as Manuel's instructions. Sung-jae smiled, seeing her reflection wearing the hanbok and the hairpin given by Pyeong-yeon. Yeogwang, who managed to meet Hae-ran, felt calm because his parents were safe. He was given a task by Hae-ran to separate Hyo-jun and Seo so that Pyeong-yeon could see Seo's curse directly. In what appears to be an attack, Seore and Hyo-jun are separated, and Pyeong-yeon encounters Seore, who is beginning to show signs of her curse. When Sae-ron's curse relapses, Pyeong-yeon is shaken and retreats in fear. Red Cloak also appears and attacks Sae-ron. Although Sae-ron manages to fight with her powers, she is caught off guard when Pung-yeon calls her. In that situation, Red Cloak throws a kunai that injures Sae-ron and makes her faint. Hye-jun and Yeogwang, who see this, try to save her. Sae-ron wakes up with her body in a cursed position and tied up, trying to free herself. Hong-joo appears with a sinister smile, scaring her. Red Cloak turns out to be Sung-jae, Pung-yeon's subordinate. Yeo Hoe-hyun is furious after finding out that Yeogwang threw the kunai at them. Then Pung-yeon appears, still insisting on looking for Sae-ron despite knowing the curse she has. Hong-joo threatens Sae-ron with a sword, but Sae-ron's power is useless in that place. When Hong-joo is about to kill her, she brings the Crown Prince's spirit to be put into the king's body. However, the king pretends to be asleep and refuses the ritual because he has been possessed by Hae-ran Sae-ron's prayer.
당장 감염돼서 나가거라.
As Hong-joo forces the ritual, an evil spirit begins to possess the king and causes Hae-ran Sae-ron pain. Pung-yeon and Yeo Hoe-hyun devise a plan to save Sae-ron. Pung-yeon distracts the shaman so Yeo Hoe-hyun can enter. Pung-yeon begins to attack and a fight ensues between them. Inside, Hong-joo influences the king to kill Sae-ron, but Yeo Hoe-hyun appears and saves her. Yeo Hoe-hyun's touch removes Sae-ron's curse and exorcises the evil spirit from the king's body. Pung-yeon holds off the shaman so they can escape. When Pung-yeon is about to kill Hong-joo, he hesitates because the king's life is tied to hers. Seo-yeoj hugs Yeo Hoe-hyun and asks him to stay by her side. Hae-ran Sae-ron convinces Yeogwang to save Seo-yeoj by making a protective talisman before her body is completely controlled by the black magic. Queen Shim is worried but supports him. The next day, the king wakes up and is angry because his illness has not been cured. Hong-joo blames Hae-ran Sae-ron and Pung-yeon and tells the crown princess that her name is Yeon-hee. Meanwhile, in a hut, Yeogwang and Hye-jun take Sae-ron to meet the half-queen. Queen Shim and Sae-ron reveal old wounds that have yet to heal. Sae-ron, who has just learned that she is the crown princess and the queen's biological daughter, pours out her anger and sadness. She felt abandoned and unwanted, living like an outcast with a curse that had been stalking her since birth. Queen Shim tried to explain that she did all that to protect Sae-ron from the threat of black magic and the kingdom's enemies. She refused to be called crown princess and declared herself as Sae-ron, not another identity. Sae-ron hugs Hae-ran Sae-ron, but she doesn't return the hug because Hae-ran Sae-ron's hand has been affected by black magic. Sae-ron doesn't believe Hae-ran Sae-ron's words that she is the only one who can break the curse and bring peace. Shocked, he ran away. Pung-yeon reports to the king that Red Robe is Hong-joo's follower and must be punished. However, the king, who is influenced by Hong-joo's black magic, asks him to bring the crown princess named Yeon-hee to him at midnight tomorrow. Pung-yeon is very surprised to hear the name. Yeo Hoe-hyun comforts Sae-ron by the lake, assuring her that to him, Sae-ron is still Yeon-hee from the Black Forest. Pung-yeon comes to see them and confirms Sae-ron's identity himself. He promises to protect her even though he knows about the curse. Sae-ron takes Pung-yeon to Chongbin Temple, where she has been living, and lights a candle to remove her curse. Pung-yeon wants to help her, but is pressured by the king's order. Sung-jae, who knows this hiding place, feels that she has found a way. At home, Yeo Hoe-hyun is still depressed until her mother persuades her to use her closeness to the king to get rid of Yeo Hoe-hyun. A drunken Pung-yeon complains to his father, Hae-ran Sae-ron, and insists on loving Yeon-hee despite the curse. At the temple, Hong-joo attacks. He takes out the Book of Demon Extermination and stabs Yeo. Seeing Yeo Hoe-hyun faint, Sae-ron's emotions explode, her curse awakens. With her power, she knocks out the shaman and attacks Hong-joo in full rage. But Yeogwang reminds her that Hong-joo's death will extinguish all the candles of life she has lit. Sae-ron finally throws Hong-joo and leaves with Yeogwang and the injured. Hong-joo orders the shaman to chase after them. Queen Shim, worried about the crown princess' safety, comes to Hae-ran and asks her to protect Seori. The king, who overhears their conversation, is angry because he feels lied to about his illness, which is getting worse. Hae-ran reveals that Hong-joo used black magic to disrupt the healing prayers. The king is furious and threatens Hae-ran that if the prayer ritual doesn't save them, he will not hesitate to kill her, and threatens Queen Shim to be involved in this. Hyo-jun, who is still unconscious, makes Seori worried. He asks Yeogwon to find his father to make a protective talisman. Yeogwon initially refuses because he is afraid that Seori will be threatened when he leaves, but Seori tries to convince him. Yeogwon complies. Yeogwon meets Hae-ran. Their Hae-ran begins to make a plan to save the crown princess and fix the amulet. She asks Yeogwon to take Yeon-hee and Hyo-jun to a safe place. Hyo-jun wakes up, but begins to experience strange symptoms due to Seo's curse, which causes anyone who loves her to get sick and die within 15 days. Hyo-jun continues to scream in fear. Seo-ah, who sees this, feels sorry for him and wants to leave. But Hyo-jun holds her back and tells her to stay here with him. Yeogwon comes with Punjeon to take them to a safer place. They take him to Ban village. Pungyeon suggests leaving Hye-jin for his safety, but Seori disagrees. They all stay and try to survive. Hae-ran comes to the village, intending to help Hyo-jun recover. He gives Hyo-jun a drink of forgetting potion, but throws the potion into the basin, and says that he wants to continue to remember and protect Yeon-hee. Hae-ran was silent, and felt that Hyo-jun could be someone who managed to light the last candle because of his sincere love. Pungyeon met the king, and said that he had not succeeded in bringing the crown princess, and was ready to accept the punishment given. The king of emotions took out a sword and pointed it at him. The king revoked his position as head of the guard and expelled him from the palace. Pungyeon hears Hae-ran's confession that Yoon's curse came from Hong-joo's black magic, whose female magic teacher is himself, and is determined to help remove the curse. Hong-joo becomes more aggressive in searching for the crown princess. However, Seori's escape plan has been prepared by Hae-ran and Queen Shim. Seori is carried on a fake palanquin to deceive the enemy, while she herself hides and undergoes a protection ritual with her father inside a Taoist temple. Hae-ran and Yeon-hee carry out the ritual to make a protective amulet with all their might. After the ritual is complete, Hong-joo comes and finds Hae-ran weak. She tries to save Hae-ran with her black magic, making Hae-ran aware and affected by the black magic. Hyo-jun recovers to find the truth about the red robe. He suspects that the culprit is Sung-jae. Hyo-jun makes a potion to give to the woman. When he tries to treat her, he finds Sung-jae in pain. He begins to believe the truth. Hong-joo, who returns to the palace, is surprised to find the crown princess already in her room, making her smile in satisfaction as she believes she has one. Seo-ah finds out that Hong-joo is happy with her appearance and starts to show herself. She tries to destroy the jar containing the crown prince's evil spirit, but Hong-joo tries to take it back. With her powers, Seori fights Hong-joo and manages to make her levitate bound. Then takes the jar away to see if that is the only way to kill the spirit. Hong-joo goes to Queen Shim and threatens her not to hide the crown princess because it will make the whole nation look for her, including the king. It turns out, Queen Shim is confused to make a decision. Hong-joo reports the crown princess whereabouts to the king and accuses Queen Shim of hiding her. The king is also influenced. Punjeon meets Queen Shim to meet Yeon-hee and bring her clothes. The queen forbids it, but Punjeon accuses the queen of taking advantage of Yeon-hee. Queen Shim is upset, but suddenly the king and his soldiers come to check with the alibi of an evil witch in the room, but find no one in the room. The king is emotional, but eunuch Kim says the ministers are waiting for his presence. In the courtroom, Queen Shim introduces Yeon-hee as the crown princess. The king does not believe it and accuses Queen Shim of using forbidden means to have a child. Queen Shim denies it and is ready to take responsibility if the king's illness comes from the crown princess. she is ready to be dethroned. Queen Shim and the crown princess come out of the courtroom and meet Hong-joo. Queen Shim threatens not to hurt the princess and to be polite to her. Yeon-hee says that today, the crown prince's reincarnation ritual will be held and invites Hong-joo to help. After the reincarnation ritual is prepared, Hong-joo arrives and tries to manipulate the situation, pretending to be sad. However, Woon-hee reveals the truth that Hong-joo is hiding the spirit jar, shocking Hong-joo. The jar vibrates, indicating that the evil spirit wants to be free. An emotional Queen Shim insists that Hong-joo must take responsibility. Yeo Hoe-hyun learns Red Robe's identity as Sung-jae. He captures her, but Sung-jae warns Yeo Hoe-hyun not to reveal her identity if he wants Pyongyang to be safe. Hye-jun Yoon-hae and Queen Shim find Yeogwang injured and the spirit jar missing. Hae-ran, who is under the influence of black magic, hands it over to Hong-joo. When the jar is retrieved, Queen Shim destroys it, freeing the crown prince's spirit. Hong-joo is furious about this and intends to use Hae-ran as her final tool to destroy the crown princess. Yoon-hee gives a potion of sweet dreams so that Queen Shim can rest in peace. In her dream, Queen Shim is happy to meet the crown prince. Because this makes the candles in Seongbin Temple light up, indicating the success of the ritual, spiritually hurting Hong-joo. Hae-ran is about to strangle Yoon-hee, who is praying, but Hae-ran's good side holds her back. Hae-ran gives Yeogwang the last page of the Demon Slayer book and asks him to kill her if she turns into a monster due to the black magic in her. She doesn't want to hurt Pyongyang or Yoon-hee. Yeogwang initially refuses and is confused by this situation. Pyongyang feels sad because his love is rejected by Yoon-hee. He wants to protect her, but Yoon-hee still wants to fight the enemy in her own way. Pyongyang is disappointed and angry. Hong-joo sends Shaman to keep an eye on Yeo Hoe-hyun because she suspects he is hiding Sung-jae the red robe. Hong-joo influences the king to kidnap the crown princess. She places a black magic jar next to Queen Shim to make her have a skin disease like the king. Pyongyang, coming to Hong-joo's room, surprisingly asks for help in changing someone's feelings with black magic. Pyongyang feels disappointed and depressed. He intends to use black magic to get rid of the pain. Hong-joo approaches him and takes advantage of the situation, offering a way for Pyongyang to get Yeon-hee back. However, the condition is that Pyongyang must kill the cursed Yeon-hee. Pyongyang hesitates, but Hong-joo continues to influence him. Hong-joo performs an evil ritual to make Queen Shim get a curse of illness. The black spirit enters Queen Shim's body, making her weak and unconscious. Yoon-hee finds Queen Shim's hands turning black, and she is very worried. Hong-joo tells the king that Queen Shim will die tomorrow, but if the crown princess shows affection, the curse can be weakened. The king is happy to hear this, but worried, then rejects Hong-joo's suggestion to entrust the safety to Pyongyang. Hae-ran, who is under the influence of black magic, states that the only way to save Queen Shim is to find the murderer's spirit talisman. Yoon-hee, Hye-jun, and Yeogwang are determined to find it. Yoon-hee feels pain in her chest. She looks at the sky where there are shooting stars, a sign that their time is almost up because the North Star will disappear. She faints and is treated by a worried Hye-jun. The king asks for Hye-wok's loyalty to sacrifice herself if necessary. Hye-wok agrees with a very hesitant heart. Hye-wok goes home and tells her mother. She feels afraid, but is forced by her mother to agree. In the morning, the king patrols the palace and meets Yoon-hee, who warns him not to trust Hong-joo too much, but the king gets angry. Yeogwang makes a tracer talisman and finds that the killer spirit talisman is in the king's palace. Yoon-hee comes to Hong-joo because she sees Queen Shim getting worse. There Hong-joo says that the king is the one who hates Queen Shim the most, not her. To save Queen Shim, Yeon-hee must hurt the king, but if she does that, she will get a severe punishment. Hye Hoe-jin and Yeogwang infiltrate the king's palace, but are discovered by Pyongyang. Pyongyang is given orders to kill them, but Yeon-hee arrives to hold back. The king became increasingly annoyed when he saw his presence. Yeon-hee was determined to stab the king in the chest, releasing the black spirit from Queen Shim's body. As a result, they were arrested. Pyongyang, who witnessed this, was shocked, increasingly influenced by Hong-joo, who instilled hatred towards Yeon-hee. In prison, Hong-joo orders Hae-ran to burn Yeon-hee with her spiritual power, but fails because Hae-ran's power is weakened. Queen Shim tries to convince the king that the crown princess is innocent, but the king refuses to forgive. In the hall, the king is hesitant about what to do because of the threat he received from Hong-joo. Suddenly, there is an arrow containing a letter from someone who knows the identity of the red cloak and threatens him that if he doesn't come to the forest, he will take the red cloak to the market. Hye-jin carries out his plan to lure shaman Hong-joo out and prove that she is the mastermind behind the red cloak. With the help of Yeo Hoe-hyun, Hye-jin manages to show the evidence to the king and prove to Sung-jae that Hong-joo is trying to harm him. In front of the king, Hye-jin promises to cure the king's illness in exchange for releasing the crown princess. Devising a plan to reverse the situation controlled by Hong-joo, Pyongyang, who is increasingly lost in Hong-joo's influence, approaches Yeon-hee in prison with mixed feelings. Suddenly, Pyongyang is attacked with an illusion of a ghost. He is frightened, but because of that, he learns of a spiritual power that can light candles. Hye-jin convinces the king that all these problems are caused by Hong-joo, and the king is just a tool for her. The king actually realizes the truth, but he is afraid of Hong-joo's threats. He finally gives Hye-jin one day to prove his words and forbids Hong-joo to treat him that day. Hong-joo, who comes out of hiding, finds out that Hae-ran's spiritual fire has been passed down to Pyongyang. She tries to manipulate Pyongyang into killing Hong-yang, who is hesitant, meets Hae-ran at a Taoist temple. Hae-ran, who is under the influence of black magic, confirms her intention, making Pyongyang hesitate but tries to obey. On the other hand, Hye-jin checks the king's wounds and is shocked to see severe wounds on his body. If Hye-jin fails to heal, the king threatens to kill Yeon-hee and himself. To find the cause of the king's illness, Hye-jin and Yeo Hoe-hyun search for the Book of Magic and find that the illness is caused by a black spell planted by Hong-joo. When the king was a child, the illness cannot be cured except with Hae-ran's help. Although Hae-ran is influenced by evil spirits, she tries to fight from within and directs Hye-jin to find the Book of Demon Extermination. Hye-jin visits the prison with the help of Yeo Hoe-hyun, who disguises himself as a royal soldier. He tells what he found. Yeon-hee tells him to make a truth potion. The goal is for the king to express his feelings unconsciously. Hye-jin and Yeo Hoe-hyun make the potion in Yeon-hee's room carefully, so that no one will hear. But unknowingly, Hae-ran, who is possessed by black magic, contaminates the potion. When the king drinks the potion, he is in pain and orders Hye-jun's arrest. The next day, Hye-jin and Yeon-hee face the wrath of the king, who intends to behead them. Even though Queen Shim begged, the king remained adamant. Yeon-hee defends herself, but the king refuses to believe her. As Hye-jin resists, a symbol of truth appears behind the king's ear, causing him to pour out his sorrow. He felt the pain during his time as king, whether pressure and feeling unrecognized. Suddenly, the king felt pain and vomited black things. Instantly, his wounds healed. Hye-jin said that it was Hong-joo's black magic that was planted in the king's mind. Because of this, the candles at the Chongbin temple were lit, causing Hong-joo to feel pain. Hong-joo is presented before the king, with evidence from Sung-jae, who claims to be Red Cloak. All of Hong-joo's crimes are finally revealed. The furious king ordered severe punishment for Hong-joo. Meanwhile, Hye-ok is also arrested for lying to the king about the red robe case. Hye-jin confirms that the king's wounds have disappeared. When Hye-jin asks for a reward, the king reluctantly promises to fulfill one request of Hye-jin in the future. Pyongyang secretly enters the prison and frees Sung-jae as a form of repayment. He then visits Hong-joo. But the trouble is not over yet. Hong-joo manages to escape from prison. Queen Shim orders tight security for the crown princess and asks Yeon-hee to keep her distance from Hye-jin. That night, Hye-jun takes his leave to find a job with Yoon-hee, promising to always watch over her from afar. But when Yoon-hee returns to her palace, she is kidnapped by a figure in a black robe. Hye-jun tries to chase after her, but loses track. It turns out that the kidnapper is Pyongyang, who takes her to a hut in the forest. The hut has been tied with Hong-joo's talisman, then burns it using her spiritual power, under Hong-joo's influence. Hong-joo smiles with satisfaction, seeing her plan going according to plan. Hong-joo, who saw the hut burning, felt satisfied, but she felt strange. The wound on her hand, instead of healing, got worse, and her hand started to turn black. When the fire started to subside, Hong-joo realized Yoon-hee was not in it. She was angry at Pyongyang, forcing him to immediately kill Yoon-hee with spiritual power if he wanted Yoon-hee to return to the way she was. Pyongyang realizes that it was all just Hong-joo's trick. Hye-jun manages to find Yoon-hee and frees her. At the same time, Pyongyang arrives, apologizes, and admits that Hong-joo almost made him kill Yoon-hee. An angry Hye-jun wants to find Hong-joo, but Pyongyang stops him. Meanwhile, Hong-joo finds the dying Hae-ran and uses black magic to revive her. Hae-ran is then ordered to break the Crown Princess protective talisman so that Pyongyang can kill the Crown Princess using his powers. On the other hand, Hye-ok, who was arrested, tried to persuade the guards to release him, but failed. He was given rice instead, but Hye-ok firmly refused the food. But he felt hungry. When he saw that the soldiers were gone, he ate secretly. Yeogwang, who is walking in a daze, meets Seondeok. He pours out his worries, starting from Yeonhee's condition to Hae-ran's disappearance. Seondeok listens to him, but she feels something is strange and claims that Yeogwang likes her, but Yeogwang strongly denies it. Hae-ran meets Yoon-hee at the Taoist temple and tries to take the shield talisman on her body. Yoon-hee is scared at first and fights with her eye power, but Hae-ran manages to get back up. She is helpless. Hae-ran starts to take the talisman, while Hye-jun also feels pain. And Yeogwang finds a strange symbol on his ear, realizing that Yoon-hee is in danger. Pyongyang enters the temple, trying to stop Hae-ran, but fails. Yeogwang protects Yoon-hee, and Hye-jun tries to fight Hae-ran, who is under the influence of black magic. Pyongyang uses his spiritual fire to defeat Hae-ran. They tie Hae-ran up, but Hong-joo tries to revive her through a ritual. When Hae-ran wakes up, she threatens them again. Pyongyang goes to Hong-joo's place where he manages to injure her, but is also cut by the black sword and passes out. Queen Shim supports Yoon-hee, but warns her to keep her distance from Hye-jun to protect the crown princess image. Hye-jun is hurt when he hears this. The queen asks the king to replace the Taoist temple head with Pyongyang. Hae-ran manages to control herself, and they learn that the black sword is the key to destroying Hong-joo's black magic. Yoon-hee makes a plan. She goes to lure Hong-joo, while Hye-jun sneaks into Hong-joo's hideout to retrieve the black sword. Hye-jun manages to get in, and finds Pyongyang unconscious. At that time, he sees the black box containing the black sword. At that time, Hye-jun is almost affected by the whispers of black magic, which makes his balance weaken. Hong-joo realizes their plan and returns to her place. Hye-jun almost falls under the control of black magic, but he manages to strengthen himself. Together with Pyongyang, he burns the black sword. Hong-joo falls, vomiting blood, and her body weakens. At night, the royal army finds and takes the items in Hong-joo's hideout. In the courtroom, Hong-joo is questioned by the angry king. The king plans to punish her by burning her alive to restore the kingdom's image. But Hong-joo instead asks for a good death, surprising everyone. Hye-jun and Yeogwang realize that Yoon-hee's curse has not been lifted, so Hong-joo should not receive the death sentence. Hye-jun goes to the king and begs him to stop the sentence. Because if Hong-joo dies, the curse will not be lifted, and could be worse. Yoon-hee has a nightmare, and gets a whisper about a child in danger. Queen Shim calms her down, and supports Yoon-hee's wish to stay with Hye-jun, in an effort to remove the curse. Hye-jun has a beautiful dream about Yoon-hee, but is disappointed when he wakes up to find Yeogwang in his arms. Yeogwang, who realizes this, makes fun of him, because the person in his dream is not the person he expected. Yeogwang is embarrassed and disgusted by this. Queen Shim warns Hae-jin to keep his distance from Yoon-hae after the curse is lifted. Good news comes from Queen Park, namely that King Seonjo's consort is pregnant. They give this good news to Queen Shim. Queen Shim is very happy and tells Queen Park to take care of her pregnancy. At the same time, the crown princess also enters the room, seeing the presence of the princess. The king decides to leave the place. Queen Shim delivers the news to Yeon-hee. Yeon-hee is happy to hear the news, but she remembers her dream last night and feels anxious. Yeon-hee walks absent-mindedly, unaware of Hye-jun calling her "why." When asked, Yeon-hee claims to be fine. They then go to the shop, meet Yeogwang and Seon-deok. When the order comes and the seller asks for money, Yeogwang and Seon-deok pretend not to see. Finally, Yeon-hee pays for the meat that comes. At night, Hyeoneseo attacks Queen Shim with black magic, but Yeon-hee manages to thwart it. Yeon-hee angrily meets Hong-joo in prison. She intends to strangle Hong-joo with her powers, but seeing the eunuch and the maid outside, she decides not to. She is determined to remove the curse. The shaman spread rumors throughout the village, accusing the crown princess of causing the plague.
백발의 기이한 힘을 가진 요물이
Queen Shim asks the king to clear the kingdom's name, but the king chooses to remain silent. Therefore, Queen Shim arranges a prayer ritual led by Poon-jeon to erase the rumors.
공주가 백발이라도.
During the ritual, the shaman attacks, causing chaos. Hyeoneseo and the shamans threaten and are about to attack Hae-jin. Hae-jin has warned that this is a trap, so Yeon-hee remains calm, but Yeon-hee manages to use her powers against the shaman, worsening the rumors that she is a witch. The people attack. Hye-jun tries to protect her and take her away, but Yeon-hee pushes him away with her strength, causing Hye-jun to get hurt. In the palace, the king, who is pressured by the people's petition, meets Hong-joo, who continues to influence him. Finally, the king agrees to the plan to kill the crown princess. Yoon-hae and Hye-jun manage to escape from Chongbin Temple. Hong-joo, who realizes this, reports to the king and asks him to mobilize soldiers for a search. At first, the king refuses, but after being influenced by Hong-joo, he agrees on the condition that Hong-joo will still be punished after everything is over. The king forces Poon-yeon to help with the burning ritual, using spiritual fire, threatening to kill him. Yeogwang and Seon-deok try to find Yoon-hae. At the market, they see the people angry because of the plague that is believed to be caused by the crown princess. Yeogwang comes to Poon-jeon, reminding him that the time to light the candles is almost up. While looking for Yoon-hee, Poon-jeon begins to feel the attack of black magic possessing him. On the other hand, Hye-jun and Yoon-hee are looking for a safe place. Hye-jun notices the exhausted Yoon-hee carrying her. He accidentally hears the sound of her stomach rumbling. They laugh. Hye-jun tries to catch a fish for them to eat, although he has difficulty, but he manages to catch it. That night, they expressed their feelings for each other in front of the campfire. But while continuing the journey, Yoon-hee feels sick because the time to remove the curse is running out. Hye-jun invites Yoon-hee to find a safer place because he feels someone is coming. Sure enough, they are surrounded by shaman and the royal army. Hye-jun tries to cover Hye-jun so that a fight occurs between them. Hye-jun is injured and falls into a ravine, making Yoon-hee cry. Poon-yeon appears, defeats the shaman and the royal army, then takes Yoon-hae to safety. When she wakes up, Yoon-hae wants to look for Hye-jun, but Poon-yeon holds her back. On the other hand, Poon-yeon finds Hye-jun's shoes on the riverbank. Yoon-hee shivers and dreams about Hye-jun directing somewhere, and her strength awakens again. In the morning, Yoon-hee goes to the palace, defeating the guards with the power of her eyes. At the palace, Queen Shim challenges the king over his decision to arrest the crown princess, but the king threatens her with a dark secret. Tensions rise when Yeon-hee arrives, surprising everyone. Meanwhile, Hyo-ak escapes from the soldiers with the help of his men. Pungyeon finds Hae-jun unconscious by the river. After regaining consciousness for a moment, Hae-jun believes Yeon-hee has gone to the palace. Yeon-hee, in anger and grief, attacks Hong-joo after hearing the truth about her origins. She nearly kills Hong-joo, but stops when she hears Hyun-shun's voice. After the situation calms down, Yeon-hee is taken to prison by the soldiers. Hyo-jun is still in the king's room. There he tries to convince the king that Yeon-hee did not intend to kill him. And the plague that is in the people of this country comes from Hong-joo's black magic. However, the king does not want to listen. He orders the soldiers to take Hae-jun to prison. Pungyeon, who is increasingly possessed by black magic, tries to commit suicide but is thwarted by the shaman on Hong-joo's orders. He is tied up in chains. Hong-joo threatens him. Hae-ran, who has also been possessed by black magic, manages to snatch the last page of the Book of Demon Extermination from Yeogwang at Cheongbin Temple and stabs Yeogwang. On the other hand, Queen Shim is sad to know that the crown princess will be burned alive. Sung-jae tries to save Pungyeon, but he is killed by Hong-joo. On the day of the execution, Yeon-hee is tied up to be burned in front of the people. The gong rings. Hyo-jun tries to escape, while Pungyeon, who has lost control, lights the fire with his spiritual power. Yeon-hee tries to escape in her fear, while Hong-joo smiles in satisfaction, seeing her plan work. The fire continues to spread, burning the straw and starting to burn Yeon-hee. She continues to struggle to free herself. Meanwhile, in prison, the soldiers scold Hae-jun, who tried to destroy the cell. The king comes to check what happened. The people are watching the burning ritual. The sky suddenly turns dark. In the palace, Queen Park, the consort of King Seonjo, is sewing clothes for her future son, but suddenly her body is possessed by the evil spirit of Hong-joo's black magic, making her float in pain. King Seonjo, who is panicked, rushes to his room and remembers Queen Shim's warning that if the crown princess dies, the curse will destroy the royal family. In the midst of the fire, Yeon-hee begins to lose control of her cursed power, causing her hair to turn white. Hong-joo is shocked to see Yeon-hee's power awaken. Pungyeon, who sees Yeon-hee seems to hear a whisper that says that there is a monster inside the woman's body, so he must kill it, and a whisper to save her. Pungyeon finally gets control of himself and realizes his mistake. Hyo-jun comes to save Yeon-hee, but is blocked by soldiers. With courage, he fights them, helped by Pungyeon, who injures Hong-joo when he tries to stop him. Hyo-jun manages to free Yeon-hee from the fire and takes her to Cheongbin Temple. Pungyeon feels guilty for causing the incident and intends to step down from the position of head of Taoist temple. At the palace, Yeon-hee gives a calming potion to Queen Park. The king says he regrets trusting Hong-joo. He asks Yeon-hee and Hyo-jun to punish Hong-joo. The king also reveals that Pungyeon is stepping down as head of Taoist temple. Yeon-hee tries to meet her brother, but Pungyeon, who is inside, does not respond. Pungyeon feels embarrassed to meet Yeon-hee. Hong-joo tries to get the last power by stealing the last page of the Book of Demon Extermination from Hae-ran. However, Hae-ran, even though her body is weak because of black magic, still refuses to help Hong-joo. But Hong-joo manages to take it because Hae-ran can't hold her body. Hyo-jun plans to fix Pungyeon and Yeon-hee's relationship with a self-mirror potion. The potion can make him aware of his thoughts and actions. Pungyeon drinks the potion, and he hallucinates meeting his father. There, Pungyeon is given the realization that he was obsessed with fulfilling his sense of responsibility to take care of Yeon-hee, instead of loving the girl. He cries because he regrets his behavior. Then Pungyeon goes to Cheongbin Temple to meet Yeon-hee. There they talk. He realizes his mistake, and is determined to make Yeon-hee happy this time. They strengthen each other and make peace. This makes one of the candles successfully lit again. Upon returning, Ji-hoon gets hit by a kunai from the shaman, then finds his father helpless in the forest. He gets information from Yeogwang that this is because his father's body is weakened by black magic. He is sad because he couldn't help his father. Hae-ran comes to her senses and sacrifices herself by absorbing Pungnyeon's black magic into her own body. She goes and successfully reclaims the last leaf from Hong-joo. Hong-joo begs Hae-ran for help, but the man refuses, choosing to atone for his past mistakes. Yoon-hee and Hyo-jun share a happy moment under the shooting stars, but they realize that there are only 2 days left to lift the curse.
우린 무사히 조를 다 켤 거고.
Hyo-jun receives the last sheet from Hae-ran. He is shocked to learn that the only way to remove the curse is by sacrificing true love, which is death. He feels confused. He burns the sheet. Yoon-hee wakes up to find Hyo-jun sleeping in front of her. She smiles happily, and Hyo-jun wakes up and smiles back. Their sweet moment is interrupted when Seondeok comes calling. Hyo-jun and Yoon-hee approach her and see Seondeok carrying a potion. She claims it's for a stab wound, but when Yeogwang questions her, Seondeok gets nervous and says it's for a stomachache. Embarrassed, she hands the potion to Yeogwang and quickly leaves. Hyo-jun, who realizes Seondeok's feelings, makes a courage potion to help her get close to Yeogwang. At the market, Seondeok keeps thinking about Yeogwang until she sees someone who turns out to be Hyo-ok. She follows the man and finds out that Hyo-ok is involved in smuggling slaves to Ming. Hyo-jun and Yoon-hee wait for Seondeok to arrive. When the woman arrives, she gives her the courage potion. Seondeok accepts it in confusion. Then she reports that Hyo-koke was involved in smuggling slaves to Ming. Yoon-hee and Hyo-jun meet with Hyo-kok. Hyo-jun scolds her to face the consequences of the trouble she caused. Yoon-hee gives her the self-awareness potion. Seondeok finally confesses her feelings to Yeogwang. Yeogwang is surprised but happy and declares that Seondeok can freely enter and exit the temple. Hyogok drinks the potion, finally surrendering to the palace. The candles at Chongbin Temple are lit again, and there is only one remaining candle. Hyo-jun and Yoon-hee spend a day together in a secluded house. They shop at the market, make and fly kites, enjoy the time together, even though they are anxious about what to do to light the last candle. At night, Yeogwang, who was drinking because he felt sorry for Hyo-jun and Yoon-hee's relationship, met a mysterious man who gave him the sacrifice potion for Hyo-jun. Yoon-hee gets a letter meeting Hong-joo, revealing the contents of the last page of the Book of Demon Extermination, The Sacrifice of True Love. Yoon-hee was devastated to hear that Hyo-jun was the one destined to make the sacrifice. In the morning, Yoon-hee asks to hold a wedding procession at Chongbin Temple. Led by Yeogwang, the wedding takes place full of laughter and happiness, but overshadowed by sadness. Night has come. They enjoy the night together. Yoon-hee's condition is getting weaker. She falls unconscious. Hyo-jun, who sees that without thinking, drinks the sacrifice potion and makes her faint. Yeogwang is worried to see the temple candles are not lit yet and looks for them. He finds Hyo-jun unconscious. When he wakes up, he finds out that Yoon-hee has switched the sacrificial herbs. With full sincerity, Yoon-hee sacrifices, and the last candle is finally lit. Hong-joo feels a heavy inner wound. Hae-ran takes her to the forest and burns herself with Hong-joo, atoning for their sins. Pungyeon can only cry watching his father's sacrifice.
너와 나의 죄는 용서받을 수 없는
Time passes. Hyo-jun takes the imperial exam in medicine and finishes faster than the other candidates. He then meets Pungyeon, who decides to travel to expand his knowledge. At the palace, King Sung-jae gives Hyo-jun his support to write a book to help many people. 40 years later, Hyo-jun is known as Grandpa Jang, a wise figure who inspires many children to become noble healers. He has loyal students and successfully completes a book entitled The Dongui Boat. On the way to the capital, Hye-jin felt tired and his students looked for water in the river. In the sky, he sees a kite that reminds him of Yoon-hye. He followed the kite's direction until he arrived at their memorable house. With a youthful soul, he enters, and when he turns around, he sees Yoon-hye standing smiling at him. And the story ends. Behind the pale moonlight lies the story of a girl. Born not as a blessing, but as a curse. Abandoned by the world, shunned by love, but even in the deepest darkness, a glimmer of light can still be found. Fate can be cruel, but humans have the power to challenge it. Not with magic, but with faith and unyielding love. We all have shadows of the past, but that doesn't mean we can't heal the wounds. Even a cracked mirror can still reflect light. This drama is not just a story of magic, but of hope, of the courage to keep loving, even when the world says no.